Welcome back, everyone. I'm sorry I've been MIA for a couple days now, but I'm happy to report that I've been cleared to return to work this week. Even though I'm crunched for time, I'm still here, and I'm coming to you with a brand new encounter. Anyone from the Hoosier State that's listening, buckle your seatbelt, 'cause we're about to head your direction. Let's go ahead and get started and head to Indiana for tonight's encounter. Grab a drink, lock your doors and windows, hit the lights, and let's get started. I've been fighting this notion for about 2 weeks now, wondering to myself if I should share this with you or not. I'm not going to use any real names, so it can't hurt to tell the story. I'm just going to call myself Paul. This happened in 1994. I was only 10 years old at the time, but I damn sure can remember it. I can remember all of it, like it happened yesterday. It was very hot and humid that summer evening. We were having a family get-together, a small reunion of sorts, at my grandparents' property in Story, Indiana. It's a pretty tiny town. It's a very quiet place full of friendly people. Very tight-knit community. But it's also the kind of place where the night swallows all the sounds and the darkness feels alive sometimes. My grandpa's farm sat right on the edge of town. Its cornfield stretching out to meet the line of trees that marked the start of the forest. The grown-ups were gathered on the porch, rocking in their chairs and gossiping, or whatever they did back then. It seemed like they were always laughing, being obnoxious and way too loud. Me and my cousins all took advantage of these little gatherings. When the adults started talking, they were not paying close attention to what we were doing. We could break a few rules here and there and get by with a few things. We rode our bikes until dark, and after that, we couldn't see to ride anymore, so we were restless. We were too old for bedtime, but too young to sit still and listen to the adults. Someone suggested a game of hide and seek. The idea came quick, and before long, we were out in the yard, standing on the edge of the cornfield. The grown-ups had warned us about the woods. Grandpa, in particular, was very adamant. He would lean forward in his chair, his voice dropping low, as he said, "You stay out of those woods after dark. The Booger lives out there." None of us never knew if he really meant it or not, but we heard them tell stories about the woods and what's out there many, many times before. I will tell you the Dogman was a pretty frequent story that was told to me and the others, but they just called it the Booger. But we all listened, and we stayed out of the corn and away from the woods at night. That is, until this night. We all decided that our game of hide and seek was more important than the old story, and we were going to put it to the test. I'll tell you now, that was a huge mistake on our part. Things did not go as we planned. Still, we were kids, and the thrill of the forbidden was just too tempting. I volunteered to be it first. Turning my back to the field, I pressed my face against the rough bark of an old oak tree by the fence and started counting. Behind me, I could hear the others scattering, their laughter growing faint as they zigzagged into the corn. When I got to 20, I spun around and stepped into the field. The corn was well above my head. I was moving slow so I could hear any giggling or any movement. My cousin Jacob was the first to go down. He had crouched too close to the edge of the field, his movements and laughing a dead giveaway. Next was my cousin Ethan, who had tried to burrow into the stalks. Their laughs were loud and carefree, the way only kids' laughter can be. But when it came to our cousin Max, things were different. We searched for 20 minutes and couldn't find him. The three of us spread out, yelling his name over and over. We even yelled the game's over, it's time to come out trick. That didn't work either. We started to think he was just being a jerk, trying to scare us, hiding somewhere really good. But the longer we searched, the more scared we were getting. The crickets had stopped, the wind had stopped, even the lightning bugs had disappeared. It felt strange that night. I had never felt that before. The air was off, heavier, almost suffocating. We regrouped standing in the middle of the cornfield, and Jacob suggested that maybe we should tell Grandpa. We all knew we would be in hot water and get in some trouble, but we were worried, so we didn't argue. When we all ran up onto the porch out of breath and scared half to death, the grown-ups' laughter died instantly. Grandpa stood up, setting his glass of iced tea down hard on the wooden rail. We told him about Max, and his face went pale. His weathered skin suddenly looked 10 years older. He didn't say anything, he just nodded toward the other men like they knew what to do. Within minutes, Grandpa and 3 of the other men were armed with flashlights and shotguns. "You stay here," Grandpa told us kids with serious authority. But I couldn't listen, not with Max out there alone, so I trailed behind them, staying out of sight, as they moved into the cornfield. The men spread out and walked in a line, sweeping their flashlights through the rows, calling Max's name. The light caught the stalks in a way, creating this strange flickering shadow that swayed in an unnerving way. All of a sudden we heard a faint cry. It was pretty far off, but it was unmistakable, coming from the direction of the woods. The men all stopped in their tracks, waiting to hear Max's voice again. There was a faint cry for help, and we all pushed forward, breaking through the last rows of corn, until we stood at the edge of the tree line. The beams from the flashlights caught him. Max was high up in a tree, clinging to the branches like his life depended on it, which it actually did. His face was pale and streaked with mud and dirt where he'd been crying. He was whimpering and pointing down underneath the tree he was in. At first glance, we didn't notice anything out of place. Then, underneath the tree, hiding behind a thicket, something big moved. It stepped forward once the light was on it. It didn't even hesitate at all. A huge black hair-covered shape that stood up on its hind legs. It towered above the underbrush. It was covered in black hair, not fur. Shaggy, black, matted hair. Its upper limbs were long and the elbows looked weird, like they were shaped wrong. Like the thing was double-jointed. Its eyes were glowing an unnatural red color, and I heard my grandpa whisper to the other men, "It's him. He is still here. It's that Dogman." The creature immediately locked its attention onto the posse of men. It started growling and walking straight at my grandpa. I felt as though they had met before. It wanted him. It didn't seem to be interested in anyone else, not even Max, and he was trapped in a tree. It got within 20 to 30 feet from them, and all the men raised their rifles in unison. Grandpa's voice was steady and stern, but his hands were shaking, holding his gun. He was screaming at this thing, telling it to get back. The Dogman then crouched in this menacing, dangerous-looking stance. This is when I realized how muscular this thing really was. It was absolutely the king of the forest, the top of any food chain on this planet. I don't know any animal that could have had any chance against such a beast that size. I don't know how tall it was, but it was at least 2 to 3 feet taller than all the men, and Grandpa was not a small guy. Not by any means. They all knew exactly what I knew. That stance, that growl, those eyes, it was about to go after someone. The first shot rang out, and it was deafening. The creature let out an ear-piercing scream, something between a roar and a shriek, and it immediately disappeared into the woods. The men all fired after it, the muzzle flashes lighting up the whole field. It sounded like a war had commenced. But when the smoke cleared and it got quiet again, the Dogman was gone. They got Max to climb down from the tree while the men kept watch, rifles at the ready. He was trembling and clinging to Grandpa as soon as he reached the ground. He said he'd seen the Dogman in the corn and it was watching him. When it started moving towards him, he ran, climbing the first tree that he could find. That night the grown-ups sat on the porch with their guns, keeping watch until dawn. Though it didn't matter much because the rest of us didn't sleep either. The next day, Grandpa didn't say much, but his warnings and rules about the woods got a lot more strict than before. The stories of the Dogman spread through Story like wildfire. Even now, years later, I can still hear that scream in my mind. I'll never forget the look in Max's eyes when they found him in that tree. He has never talked about it, not once. What we saw that night wasn't just a made-up story. What we saw was real, and had we not found Max when we did, I don't even want to think about that, what that thing would have done to him. It makes me wonder how well they can climb. I'm not sure if the thing couldn't climb or if we had made it just in time before it had a chance. I saw it pretty clear, and by the looks of the thing's hands and claws that were on the fingers, I have no doubt that it could have probably easily climbed the tree. I think we just happened to get there before it did. My grandparents are both still alive, and they still live on the same property. My grandpa still to this day tells that story. He also swears that over the last few years he has encountered the same creature a couple more times. I guarantee he's telling the truth. I don't know why that thing is lingering on their property, but it's been there for as long as I can remember. When they told us the stories of the Booger, I never knew exactly what we were dealing with. What really puzzles me is if the adults knew this thing was real and it was out there, how could they in their right mind allow us kids to even play out there? The size of that creature, the way it moved. It wouldn't matter if you're in the woods or in the corn or even in the yard. If that thing would have came for us, there's no way we could have gotten away from it. It disappeared into those woods so fast that it outran the bullets. I'm not sure if it even got hit by any of them. It was just the scream, the sound that it made before it disappeared. I don't know how to describe it to you, but I can sure hear it in my head right now. I don't really know of any animal sounds that I could compare it to. I'm going to go visit my grandparents soon, and I'm going to tell him about your channel, and I'm also going to tell him that I shared the story. I'm hoping that I can ask him more about this creature now that I'm an adult. Maybe he'll be willing to share some stories of his own. I know for sure he has a couple. Well, that's my encounter with the Booger, or the Dogman. That's what the creature put me and my family through. All parents and adults out there listening, take this as a warning. Please keep a close eye on your kids and don't let them play in wooded areas alone. These things could snatch up your kids and be gone before you even know what happened. I have kids of my own now, and I would never let them go anywhere near the woods by themselves, because I know what's out there, and I know what it's capable of. Thanks for reading my story. After I visit my grandparents, I'll contact you if I have any more encounters for you. Thanks, sincerely, Paul. No matter how many encounters I narrate, the ones that involve children are the most unsettling to me. I had my encounter as an adult, and it truly messed me up in ways that I could never describe. I just can't imagine seeing this as a child. Paul, my friend, my heart goes out to you and your family, brother. To know that you went through this, and even your cousins, especially Max, I can't imagine being in his position at his age. It's heartbreaking. I hope he's doing all right now. I really hope this didn't traumatize him for life, although I don't know how it wouldn't have. Thank you for singing this, man. I truly appreciate it. I hope your grandfather doesn't get angry for you sharing the story online. I also hope that he'll be willing to share even more stories with you. If not, I understand. And I'm grateful that you sent this one. Again, thank you, and God bless your family. Guys, can you imagine being in Max's position? I myself cannot. Truly gut-wrenching encounter. I want to thank all you listeners and subscribers for sticking with me through my injury ordeal. Now that I'm getting back into my normal life routine, hopefully I can start cranking out more uploads. I've said it before, and I'll say it now, again. I have the best subscribers on this entire platform, and I will die on that hill. That's going to do it for tonight, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this encounter. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on your way out. The channel is slowly growing every day, and I really do enjoy doing this, especially the fact that I feel like I'm helping people. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones, keep your head on a swivel, and as always, good night.